stay tuned on this episode of That Kingsville Podcast. She's one, boy oh boy. Hey, anybody hear that there was a name for a school that is highly contested by the entire town of Kingsville? Oh boy, we got Angelina Ward. And
I don't know if you could say entire.
Okay.
town. I can think of one person that likes it.
Well, then there's at least three.
Okay, I retract that. I apologize. I retract that. I did not intend to infer the entire population, but a vast majority of people that have been liking, subscribing, sharing on our Facebook page certainly aren't in agreement with the decision to name the new school Erie Migration Academy. Is it invoking a reflex?
Oh, sorry, something stuck.
My name is Ass.
So we've got Angelina Ward and Will Cowell on the show today to talk about what they presented at the recent Greater Essex County District School Board meeting when the initial motion to reconsider subject was supposed to come up. So stay tuned for that. And then a lot of opinions, comments, commentary, discussion, frustration, and a little bit of anger. And if you can't tell, I'm pretty red because I just finished off Stay tuned. She's a great episode.
I'm red too, but I was in the Dominican.
Hey now, easy. Not all of us are that fortunate. Stay tuned. That Kingsville Podcast, proudly presented by Kingsville Brewery. They're back open, guys. Woo! You missed it. You were gone. Yes. They opened up on the 15th. Hooray.
Amazing.
Tap House is open again. And thankfully, they had a great St. Patrick's Day. I haven't been able to be in because I traveled a little bit too, but I'm so happy to hear that they're back open. So they're open their regular hours. They run a full lunch menu. You can get all the beers that you want there as well. You know,
Get the light A.
Holy cow, eh?
Check it out.
I got, you guys are wittier than me, but go to kingsvillebrewery.com.
Or should I say, check it stout?
Oh.
Hefeweizen. I got nothing. Again, Tap House is open again now for lunch and dinner. Check the website, kingsvillebrewery.com, or go on the social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatnot. Thank you, Kingsville Brewery, for supporting That Kingsville Podcast. Welcome to That Kingsville Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Hunt. With us tonight, Kevin Black, Steve Ianson, special guest in studio, Angelina Ward, and on the phone, Professor at Large, Will Cowell. And we're all here to talk about the recent Greater Essex County District School Board trustee meeting that happened March 19th, 7 o'clock, and the controversy around the school naming the Kingsville JK-12 school, currently known as Erie Migration Academy. Thanks for joining us, Angelina and Will. So, Angelina, Will, you were both volunteered to speak at this committee meeting. So, Angelina, again, you were in person. Will, you were on the phone, unable to attend, but still the content and what you discussed through this meeting, very relevant, very important, very happy that we had some representation from the town in order to speak on it. So, Angelina, you've also done some things before this. So could you tell us, what happened? Why did you get involved with this initiative? What inspired you to do what you've been doing? And let us know, how you've been a part of it.
So initially, my sister was actually on the naming committee. She had kind of informed me that there were two top names, which were Greater Kingsville District Academy and Kingsville District Academy, and basically that it was going to be one of those two names. And then it came out that the name was Erie Migration Academy, and I was kind of blindsided.
We all were.
And there was a lot of Facebook outrage and no clear, concise direction to anything, just a lot of anger. So, being that my foot was broken and I was at home not working, I had a lot of time on my hands. So I decided to pick through all these comments and put together a petition with a clear and concise direction. Because obviously this is something that matters a lot to me, and I wasn't alone. So that's kind of why I did what I did.
And Will, again, why are you engaged in this process? What was the inspiration? What was it that caused you to want to speak out and do the extensive research that you've done?
My wife, actually. So what happens is my wife, she likes to track a lot of stuff on Facebook. I'm not much into that, but she does a lot of following people, and she followed this naming process right from the start, and was interested in it. Kind of kept me posted along the way, stuff she thought was interesting and stuff, and then all of a sudden we saw the Kingsville Times video come out, and her and I watched it together, and I could see that she was emotionally disturbed by this fumbling around of the trustee trying to, justify their position or use the Indigenous history and these types of things. And they didn't know what they were talking about. And so she was really upset. And I could just feel it, with her. And I said, listen, I'll, let me look into this. She said, yeah, would you please kind of look into this thing? And so the more I got looking into it, I just, I'm an old guy, right? I mean, I got glasses so I can read. I got listening carefully. I'm getting old. But the one thing that's not getting old is my smell, my sense of smell, and this thing didn't smell good. Didn't smell right at all, so, and the more I got into it, the deeper I got. And the more I could tell that there's something wrong, clearly something wrong from the get-go all the way back. And, in my view, this thing dates back to 2015 and the St. Clair meeting. So
yeah,
that's kind of what got me into it. And she was really, like I said, I don't like to see my wife upset. So I came to her rescue, I guess, at some point, but really it got very interesting as I got into it.
And Angelina, you prepared, and Will, you both prepared 5 minutes to speak about at the meeting. And there's videos that are available. We're not going to go through the whole context and dialogue about what you both presented. I want to just touch on a few things that you pointed out. So, Angelina, in part of your speech, you talked about community and meaning of community of Kingsville. So, when you started writing that 5 minute speech, outline. When we talk about Kingsville and that feeling of community, is that the association with the name of the school that you feel is the most important part of why the name of the school, or is it the fact that it's a school in a location? What's the association strength that you have with regards to Erie versus Kingsville?
Well, Kingsville is the heart of our community. My family's went to Kingsville District High School for 3 generations, and my grandpa played sports. He was super proud to be a Cavalier, and it really is a rite of passage. You kind of can't wait until it's your turn to go to Kingsville District High School. And I don't know if it's that it's the building, great teachers. It's a feeling. And we were kind of given the impression that this feeling would be kept alive despite the fact that these buildings were closing.
That's pretty succinct. It was, as it was explained when we had Trustee Burgess in studio, she did acknowledge, and we agree, that schools are closing. Those buildings will no longer be where the attendance is. However, there's the new identity at the new school. And, your point about that sense of pride will have to be generated with this new facility. So when the name came out.
I do disagree with that notion. I know that's one thought that Trustee Burgess had when she was on our podcast, is that it's a new building. But there's something in a name. There's a reason why there's copyright. There's a reason why there's trademarks. There's a reason why artists fight for names. They carry passion and emotion. And to say that it's just a building and the name doesn't matter because it's a new building is very dismissive to all our entire feelings towards Canada's just the name of a piece of land. It is.
It is.
Kingsville is just the name of a piece of land
In that country called Canada.
in that country.
A chunk of land.
And the Kingsville District High School is the name of a building, and if you have passion towards that term, that passion carries on. It's not a whole lot different, and I know there. I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a diatribe, but honestly, that whole notion of a name at a new building doesn't carry the passion on. It really bothers me because I think that that's very dismissive to people's emotional power to what that is.
I think that's a common feeling.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Yeah, obviously, Will, it invoked an emotional response from your wife.
Yeah, that she was also of the thought that that Kingsville should have been in the name, but she was also distraught about the lack of knowledge of the GECDSB, the actual fumbling around of the history of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe people, and this narrative that they tried to make up. It was almost like a false narrative, I said, or ignorant, or just a lack of knowledge about the Erie people or what have you. I mean, they just made that up to justify not having that other name. It was just they just went from one bad turn to another.
Yeah, and Angelina and yourself both made very strong points, and thank you for doing the research and the history and bringing that up, because again, we're not able to do all the research, all the information seeking. So having that come to light, even at this point in time, incredibly relevant, incredibly important to this whole issue.
Sure it is. And what did they do with it?
Well, they received it, and I don't know if they did a whole lot with it, except for probably found the nearest recycle bin and probably just filed it away.
Well,
That's subjective. That's
Now,
my opinion.
They are
Allegedly.
the chair is and without an intention to sound dismissive, the chair is considering a notice of motion to rescind the name.
100%.
That is the status that it's at right now.
Yeah, I was going to round out with that in a little bit, but no,
I'm sorry.
No, that's very relevant, right? Again.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say, because I want to go off on my own diatribe, but I want to save it until we've obviously addressed the concerns of our guests. When you put the time in that you both have, and you put the effort in and the research and the passion, and you get there and you deliver this speech, and it gains a great deal of support and a great deal of acknowledgement from everybody else, but the people that matter seem to basically just dismiss it. What went through your mind afterwards? How are you feeling now? And, does it fire you up more, or does it make you think, you know what? They don't get it. Whatever. They just don't get it.
I think that when you are given information that contradicts your stance, it's really hard to admit that you're wrong in front of a lot of people. So, it kind of makes me more determined, because I know that I'm coming from a place of truth, and I just want the truth to get out, really. I think that it wasn't right that they justified the use of the word Erie in the way that they did. I just don't think it was right. A lot of this just wasn't right.
And Will, in your report, you reference the acronym DIE, Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity. Can you explain a little bit about that? Because it did. It is, and quite frankly, it's
I even have to teach that in some of my courses. I teach postgrad students, and I have to teach a level of diversity, inclusion, and equity. And when I do that, I tell them, everybody has equal opportunity. That has to be the first most thing that we have. Diversity is great when it's not forced. That The equity is important. These things are important, but when they're used as a weapon or used as some other method or motion, then it's harmful. It's harmful to the whole of the system. And I think that currently there's a lot of examples where, some people call it DEI. I personally call it DIE, the acronym DIE. If you just watch it in Florida, for example, the legislature in Florida just denounced it and won't allow any funds, any government or public funds to go towards it because it's being used in a weaponized way. So I think that it's important that they use it. I think it's important to teach it to the students how to do it properly. And I think the school board has turned it on its face and is using it improperly.
Yeah, it's no secret that we're a multicultural, diverse area. We've got many different nationalities globally, and to use certain circumstances conveniently within the explanation of why the name Erie Migration Academy was chosen has obviously caused reaction because it's not the facts, and the statements that were made at the meetings were that these names were vetted.
Right. And they got all salivating about, oh, this is inclusivity, oh, this is equity, oh, this is, and they just kept going on about it. And I don't even know that they knew what they were talking about.
Well, they definitely didn't, because they didn't talk to Caldwell, and that's whose land that the school is on.
We'll get there. We will get there. Don't you worry.
Well, and maybe we want to hold off because I was going to say, just for the people that haven't seen the video, I do think it's important that we kind of touch on what some of those points are that were raised that Will's talking about. And Will, maybe, and do you want to talk about it now, Dave? Or
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So Will, maybe if you don't mind, in kind of shorthand, can you tell us why it is that the word Erie, when raised in a Indigenous context, might not be appropriate?
Well, it's funny that Trustee Burgess said that she looked at 10 dictionaries and 10 thesauruses on these words, these three words. I can imagine. You know what it took me? Well, first of all, my wife called AIAI, which is an organization in London. But I looked up on Wikipedia in 30 seconds, the history of the name Erie and the people of that time. I mean, it was not difficult. 30 seconds to get it. And then once you're in there in 5-10 minutes, you can really figure out, what happened in the, there was what they called back in the day, the Beaver Wars in the 1600s. The Erie people of Pennsylvania, what we now call Pennsylvania and Ohio, were actually chose to fight against their own people. They chose to fight against their own people in these Beaver Wars, and they lost that, and they lost their name and everything. They were, either killed in that Beaver War, or they were indoctrinated into another tribe, who ultimately became, Haudenosaunee or Anishinaabe or whatever the tribes were at that time. But they never existed, and they never existed here, and they never existed, beyond 1650. And, it was a travesty. It's terrible that it happened, but that was the way it was then, and that's what happened. And so to have the school board say that the inclusivity of naming the school Erie was a First People's name here on this land was just an atrocity. To anyone who, especially anyone who is Indigenous or of that native descent. I mean, it's just an atrocity for them to do that. And I just, and like I said, if you saw the look in my wife's face, just like you saw when Angelina was presenting, it is an insult to mess that up. And if you don't know it, say you don't know it and don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Don't say you looked it up in 10 dictionaries.
Right. Angelina, while you were there, you did get emotional while you were reading your speech.
Yeah.
So
that was great.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're passionate about something.
It was.
So talk about that. Like, what was, as you were reading it, what was the emotions that you were feeling as you wanted to get this information out?
Well, at first I was just trying not to lose my lunch.
Hey, public speaking's not easy, right?
But then once I was up there and looking at the people, it was like, okay, I have a lot of things to say. It's time to connect with my audience and look at the people who I'm talking to and kind of gauge the reactions. And I think it went pretty well.
As everyone said and heard. So,
not the audio recording on YouTube.
But again, for all those that are watching our video, you've posted on Facebook and reread what you did read at the meeting.
So it's intelligible this time.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there's transcripts as well too. I think you can get an audio or transcript from your video, so you can read it as well too. So, but in your discussion, you referenced that you contacted the Cowell First Nations to have a discussion with Chief Duckworth. Yeah.
So that was kind of my first instinct was, okay, well, if they're saying that the rationale behind this name is that it's important to Indigenous people, let's talk to Caldwell because they're the most local and federally recognized Indigenous group to this area.
Well, the school will be built and is being built on their land.
Treaty 2 McKee purchased land.
Right, exactly.
And so I just wanted to know, and I kind of reached out and I talked to a couple different people, and my email got forwarded to Chief Duckworth, and she gave me a call, basically told me that Erie was not important to Caldwell. They don't have that word in their language. That's not how they referred to the lake. The lake's very important, but they never called it Erie. And I asked her, did any trustees reach out to you? Because it was made to look like they did their homework and did their research, and that was not the case. No trustee had reached out.
Right. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the comment was made that these names were vetted, and the statement was made, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have the exact transcript, but that Trustee Burgess had stated in the meeting that at the initial selection of Erie Migration Academy, that was vetted properly and that it had gone through its process, and the acronym, which has been a big source of controversy and discussion and frustration with EMA having its association to Eat My Ass. Yeah. Which, again, hey, as a mid-40s guy, I'll admit I didn't immediately come up with it, but the teenagers that I live with did.
The people who will be going to that school will be aware. The people who will compete against our kids will definitely.
Students, you're calling? Right. It's not attended by adults that an acronym like EMA medical has no connotation to, but the place where you have a diploma, the place of personal pride, of attendance and whatnot. Yeah. Again, so your points and Will's points and some of the other points that Kinsey and the other students that spoke, these are relevant. These are relevant to this issue. So
well, and this isn't a question that anyone can answer around this table, but if the school board is well aware that Eat My Ass is the acronym for that school, then and they still continue with the naming with that understanding, is there an ability for them to levy punishment against students who use that acronym? Can they suspend students who are screaming "Eat my ass" when they're on the side of a soccer pitch?
And it's interesting that you raise that point, because in the discussion with some other parents, I said, and obviously as a longtime coach, you deal with schools for the most part that are good. There's always a couple that you're gonna. It's a little more fractious, the rivalry, but I said every coach, every teacher, whether it's a debate or wherever else they go, should document every time they hear it, every time. And that should be sent in an email to the board every single time it happens.
But doesn't matter because it's condoned, right? The school board has decided that it
goes against their anti-bullying policy.
Yeah.
So can I just, to your point, just to your point, 1 second, just so you know, they can't deny or don't know that it isn't that, that's what that acronym is. You know, I called up Scott Scantlebury myself. I've spoken to the superintendent, Todd Elwender. I've spoken to the director's office, Melissa LeBouf, and I have told them about that. And I said, imagine what they're going to come up with in the branding and the making of this. What are they going to come up with? What are they going to call these?
Will, because you don't have a presence on social media, I'm going to tell you, it is on every feed of all of my social media accounts. All of the podcast social media accounts are characterizations or memes or slogans or pictures of school spirit wear. Where it's subject.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, Scott Scantlebury, he was not concerned when I said that to him on the phone. I talked to him about it. He says, "Oh, you're going to go there." I said, "I wouldn't go there except for you guys brought it up. You said in the meeting the naming committee did not want a crazy acronym. You said that in the meeting."
Was
so
that
when
Steve?
When Burgess,
not that one specifically, but
they
no, not that one specifically. But Trustee Burgess said that she had two requests from the naming committee. One was, "Don't come up with a crazy acronym." Right?
That was her request?
Well, okay, so
the naming,
initially
that was your answer to their request, EMA.
Right. So Scantlebury said, be careful. Try not to name a school after an individual, because even though, they might seem like a saint, we all have things in our past. So that was one.
Well, and I do think that at some point we need to talk about Walkerville Collegiate. Because as some people may know, Walkerville Collegiate is named after a whiskey baron, and a man who basically refused to pay property taxes in the town of Kingsville to John King, and so completely abandoned a casino and destroyed the town's waterfront for years.
Sure, but indirectly,
and it's promoting alcohol at a school.
Yeah, well, I'm going to argue that it's not named after Hiram Walker. It's named after the part of Windsor it's located in, which is indirectly
named after.
No, but can you imagine naming a school after the community it's in?
Who would think of such a thing?
Wow.
Oh my gosh. God.
Anyway.
I think to touch on that point a little bit further.
Please.
I think that the school that you go to, the community surrounding it really gives it its meaning.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the people who go to Walkerville necessarily associate it with the consumption of alcohol. I don't know how they feel, so I don't want to speak for them.
But we can do that. Yes, they do. They don't. No, but you're right. Again, it's the community that puts the culture, the feeling, and the pride behind
exactly.
The name. I'll go as a quick aside. 2016, we host Office of Soccer Tournament. We have to go out into the community and generate sponsors. Okay, so I'm approaching people who at the time I know either don't have a student at the school or maybe never had a student at the school. And I don't know myself personally if they went to KDHS. So I remember walking into Ernie's TV. I had a brief chat with Ernie DeMars, and Ernie's like, "Oh, have you ever seen my medal?" He's got a medal from when he went to office, a gold medal, I think it was. And he forked over the money. I went to all these other businesses and asked if they, and they did. They did it without hesitation. They got behind the school because of the pride in the community. And I'm really concerned that with this name, that there's going to be a lot of disassociation from people with it. And I'll go on my little rant later about the pride factor. But yeah, it's a concern. And it goes, to what Angelina is saying, that the name, the town, and they've made the point about, well, the catchment area isn't just Kingsville. Well, no, it's not. But Essex isn't just Essex. They draw a lot from Cottam, which last I checked was in Kingsville, Kevin.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Leamington has drawn from Wheatley, which isn't even in Essex County.
Right.
But anyway.
Half of it.
Okay, fine. Part of it.
Yeah.
The part that didn't blow up.
The part that's left.
Yeah. It has no, but for years,
Sorry,
right? Even up towards Tilbury.
Yeah.
Some people go to Leamington.
That's okay.
Their IB program draws from Kingsville. So don't give me the BS line about, well, that's not just the catchment area anymore, right?
Yeah.
We've still got a school named Gosfield North. Gosfield North hasn't existed for 25 years.
Yeah.
Nor is Colchester North. So don't give me your geographical BS on the naming.
Yeah,
anyway,
Will.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Will, you went through the original video on YouTube on the Greater Essex County District School Board Council meetings, or committee meetings, I should say. And you did a time-stamped analysis of the conversations that were held at that time and what individuals said, and then you provided some insights. So, it's quite extensive, and I appreciate that you sent it over for us to reference and whatnot. But some of your insights, some of your reflections, very poignant now having the March 19th meeting have had happen.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what you saw in the video from the February meeting to what transpired in March, and how clairvoyant you were in predicting the future?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick comparison. So even for myself, watching that February 20th video, and I probably went overboard. I wrote like 6,000 words on that topic, so and had to boil it down to 600 to speak to them. But at the end of the day, though, my feeling at the time was I was really energized about the fact that these guys are really trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes. Like they literally were trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes and make this terrible explanation. And Trustee Burgess was complimented by Nelson and by Hatfield and by all these other trustees. What an awesome explanation you did, and all this stuff. And I thought to myself, oh my God, it's all so canned. Like it was also so prepared, before. And then when I saw the March 19th one, participating in it, you could see that they shifted from this trying to pull the wool over your eyes to this level of arrogance that was, you know what, we're the board. It's our job to name it. You guys had your shot. Here's what it's going to be. And they shifted from trying to convince people with really ignorance and untruths and their own narrative to this kind of, okay, yeah, fine. We've heard you, and we still don't really pay any attention to it. And the name is the name. And Trustee Burgess made it clear at the end of that presentation that very little is going to change based on this, she said, in that March 19th meeting. So I reached out to her the next day on LinkedIn and asked her, very professionally and politely, can you meet with me on a Zoom call? I'd like to have an interview with you just to go over the discussion about you saying before the meeting was even over, saying that very little is going to change. And of course, she never responded, but I thought they shifted from that trying to convince everybody with this false narrative to just this level of arrogance that said, she's 23 years in that job. She's been elected 7 times. She do pretty much whatever she wants. Do you know that the organization there?
Sorry.
What's that?
Cut well off, but she's dealt with 5 or 7 premiers or however many
right.
it is.
And, and her political narrative is not aligned with the political narrative of Ontario or what have you. But anyway, here's the thing. So she got to that point, and I thought to myself, well, you've been 23 years. You would know this process inside out. It wasn't the process that was so bad. It was mismanaged. It was not led. It was deceptive. It was already decided what was going to happen. And they had this level of arrogance that they were just going to do it anyway.
Certainly seems that way.
So when I initially applied to be on the naming committee and then I got chosen, I don't know if I said to you guys, I know I said to a couple of people, I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to enjoy it. But at the end of the day, the board's going to do what they want anyway. And I remember saying that before the first meeting.
Yeah, you said to us. Yeah.
So we went through the process and then we went through the second meeting. And the hardest thing I think to swallow was two things could have easily happened and this could have all gone in a much better direction. First of all, present the two names the committee came up with. Just tell the board, this is what the committee has proposed.
Actually say them.
Yes.
Verbalize.
Yeah.
Which Will, you pointed that out.
And B, tell the committee at the second meeting, this is my suggestion. I'm going to also present this to the board. But the trust was lost as soon as everything that we felt we had worked for and worked toward was completely wiped out. And that's how we felt. And that's as an adult. I can't even, and my daughter was obviously on the committee too. I can't even tell you how some of those students felt. Like, there were tears, there were anger, there were rage. For some now it's turned into apathy. Like, it's basically just like they don't know who to trust. They can't trust the adults.
And can we stop the student trustee charade?
Yeah.
Like what? Why is that student sitting there? And like,
because he has a spine.
There's two. There's a city and I apologize, I can't remember both their names.
No, but Colin
Pine. Right, because he was very vocal and very involved in this conversation.
Well, and Trustee Pine was the only one in the February 20th meeting who mentioned Kingsville District Academy.
Correct. And it was not received as, or in the context of it being a selection of consideration for that motion.
Correct.
What's also difficult to swallow is Julia has said on record several times that she is not just the elected trustee for this area. She is a trustee for the entire board. So therefore, we have 9 representatives, and only 3 had the guts to step up and speak on behalf of what the community wanted. The other 6 basically turned their back or shot us the middle finger, did whatever they want. And their conduct at the meeting, when you look at some of them in that video, the way they were kind of like, rolling their eyes, slouching back in their chairs, staring at their phones. Like, come on, you're dealing with students. You were representing students, and you're going to behave this way? Like you're the kindergartners? Come on.
And getting back to it again, Angelina, you felt compelled to speak out and speak up and represent. And, again, just like us, we got jobs, we got problems, we got things, but we're all participating in our own ways.
Yeah.
So after the meeting on the 19th and what went down and how at the end of the meeting, I was in attendance, by the way, if I haven't mentioned it already, I sat through there, as well. I was there. I wanted to see it firsthand because I wanted to understand what happened. Mm-hmm. And I had my own feelings. I'll talk about them later. But hey, it was 9:32, I believe, was the timestamp. Oh, meeting done. Get out. All right, let's go. Bam, gone. What went through your head?
I was in disbelief. I just couldn't believe that they really had no regard for the students. I think that they lost complete sight of what is most important here. Like, if the name EMA is offensive to the students who will be attending that school and will potentially cause harm to the students who are attending that school, that's your one job, is to make sure that students are safe and respected and that they are not going to be harassed at school. I think this is just set up for failure. So I was pretty upset.
Well, the good news is this might solve their enrollment problems. They'll probably have room now.
Cardinal Carter and the Catholic board right now are probably laughing. Well, they are laughing because they're laughing at the name. But they're probably thinking, they're probably like, come on, come to us. We'll take you.
In reality, so
Cardinal Carter was
I'm a Catholic school supporter. My kids go to St. John's right now.
We're not all perfect.
And
I'm kidding.
That's harsh.
It is.
That's harsh.
He's grinding.
That's rough. That's rough.
Steve's emotional. He's grinding. I apologize.
But I can pretty much see the construction from my house. And so we were excited, my wife and I, for our kids to go to the school that's like across the road and 2 minutes down the street. And now I'm not excited about my daughter potentially being told to eat her ass.
Mm-hmm.
And
any kid, for that matter.
Right.
Son, your daughter, your nephews, your nieces.
But as a parent, I don't want my kid to go through that. Why would I subject her to bullying that when you can, prevent it before it happens?
Exactly.
And I guess that's
right.
What I don't get is, why do 6 trustees not see this? Why do they not care? Because to me, that's what it is. They don't care.
Yeah.
Well,
and if
an ideology.
Sorry,
go ahead.
It's an ideology.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't help. But it's an idea. They have an ideology there that is, this narrative around what they called ideas and concepts, and about nobody's perfect and can't use a posthumous or human name, or that Kingsville steeped in racism, or
which is a lie.
Which I was going to get to.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, I know you guys got some stuff. I looked that up. I really researched Kingsville Sundown, and the things that came up, you may have read in my report. It came up. The first thing that came up was the Herald still had segregated schools in 1968. Mm. Now, the board would have supported and sanctioned that for 100 years. Huh? Leamington came up.
Right.
Well,
go on.
Maybe they were there.
Right.
And then Leamington came up as a sundown town with harsh penalties. But Kingsville never did come up. Not one time. I researched it. It came up that, settlers or loyalists came there in the 1700s, and James King built the first school, and, that kind of stuff. It never came up, because Trustee Burgess said, this is not news. This is not new. This is in our history books. Everybody knows this. Well, I don't know it. I've never heard it before in my life, and I couldn't find it on search engine.
So to that point, societally, we've been trying to undo those transgressions, those incidents, those wrongs of the past by removing all information and or significance of statues or street names or school names or whatever, to completely eliminate that from the purview and from anyone from understanding what and why and how. And the idea that nothing of any kind of unfortunate set of circumstances is allowed in our view or allowed to be referenced ever again. This issue and this narrative, with it being the forefront of how as society we have to act and we have to interact, goes back to your diversity, inclusion, and equality. Kind of
equity.
Equity.
Just remember the acronym DIE.
Yeah, DIE. It's now causing more tension and more visibility towards things that, as a society today, I think we would normally accept and say, yeah, that was then. We're better than that now. Mm-hmm. We have to recognize that those were the times, and this is what happened, and we've come so far in our society, in our life, that yeah, we recognize that. Hey, we don't do that now. But that's not a reason to wipe away everything that was done, because we're not taking it in that context today. Like, well, Kingsville's a very racist town because blah, 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 or whatever have you. Because a lot of what we have as an association in North America comes from Great Britain, and we all know about what happened in Great Britain, or at least some of us who've read history and their conquests across the globe.
I was just going to say, if this is the ideology we're going for, then get Charles and Elizabeth off our money,
off our coins, yeah. And like the steeped history that we have, and it did come at the sacrifices of societies like Mexico and Spain and Portugal.
Queen Elizabeth School should be renamed right now.
Right.
Well, but reality is, and the comparison that the school board will make is Amherst, but General Amherst was a person. Kingsville is a place. And that's a very specific delineation that needs to be made. General Amherst High School General Amherst is a person.
Correct.
That wasn't Amherstburg High School. It was General Amherst High School.
Right.
Kingsville District High School is referring to a geographical location. And so if you're going to say, well, we had to rename Amherstburg, it wasn't Amherstburg High. It was General Amherst High. That's a person.
Right. And thank you for bringing that around.
Right. They're both nouns, right, but they don't mean the same thing.
Are you a grammar teacher?
I am, as Steve will attest, I am definitely not.
No, we're amateur professional podcasters, Will. Amateur professional podcasters. So, Will, you called into the meeting, so I'm sure you're watching along at home with all the fans and whatnot. And near the end of the meeting, there was some hubbub about procedure and what was transpiring, and issues of motion that were denied due to being out of order. Watching at home, what were you seeing? What were you thinking as that was all going on? And then the abrupt end of the meeting.
Well, in my whole view of that meeting, I thought that the chair actually really got, Hatfield really got animated around making sure that anyone that opposed this process was going to be sat down or made to be apologized. Or I thought she was quite hard on Trustee Pine, sorry, my apologies, on the student Trustee Pine. I thought that she was quite easy on Trustee Burgess for, mumbling and talking and whispering through the process and different things going on. And I just felt that there was such an obvious arrogance of that going on, and a complete lack of respect for everybody's time who were there, the 300 plus people who were online participating. I don't know how many people were in the room, but looked like a lot of people, sounded like a lot of clapping and cheering when we were speaking and stuff after we spoke.
60 to 70 people, right? 50, 60 people. Ish. I don't know.
I don't think
it's a long
there's
commitment.
A good amount of people.
Yeah, it's a long commitment.
But here's the point. Those folks in that GECDSB, they can't read a room. They don't know what's going on. They have no empathy. They didn't demonstrate that they could actually participate or read the room.
You know what? The one part watching the video back today of that conversation I thought was really a really difficult look was when, and I will say her name wrong, Trustee Chin. When Trustee Chin was making her notice of motion, the second she started talking, and the camera's on Julia Burgess when she's making the notice of motion. It's not on Trustee Chin. And when she's making that notice of motion, as soon as she starts talking, Julia goes on her phone. And the entire time that she's making the notice of motion, she's just staring at her phone, looking at stuff. And seeing that dismissive nature happen in video it's alarming. It really is, to know that your elected official it just has nothing better to do with her time than to go on her phone while there's a person discussing a school name that's in your elected area.
And you and I have covered council for years in our previous employ, and there were times where things could get heated and there'd be disagreements, but you never, or even very rarely, saw any of the conduct from council members, whether it was town or county, that you saw in that board meeting in those 2 hours.
Well, and I'll tell you, you would every once in a while, but administration would shut it down. And a lot of times, if there was conduct that was against their procedural bylaw, or if there's issues happening that's being discussed at times when they're not supposed to be discussed, usually a clerk or a CAO would step in at that point,
or the chair,
or more appropriately, the chair or the mayor would step in and keep the meeting on track, because what happens is what you saw, just mayhem. It's
so.
Sorry, Will. I just
wanted to add one thing about that structure. So that was one of the things. So I'm from the automotive world. It's very, very, very rigid in structure and escalation protocol, and the chain of command and all of that stuff. Right, when it comes to making decisions. When I called up the school board, I learned that the administration, the director, the superintendent, public relations officer, they have no responsibility or accountability. They're appointed by the trustees. And they have no business telling the trustees what to do, because the trustees appoint the director. And they told me this goes back 100 years, that process has never changed, and it's always been that way. And the administration of the school board has no authority or responsibility to check this process.
Wow.
No, it's definitely opened a lot of people's eyes and a lot of awareness now to, pull the curtain back and see what, the wizard and what's actually happening on the backside. So
plug your nose. Just plug your nose while you're at it.
So,
well, there's going to be lots of ass talk. So.
Oh, Angelina, you again, with what you discussed and you're taking the time out of your day today, do you feel like you've done anything? Are you going to continue? Like, is it done? Do you feel defeated and move on, or is the fight still going?
I'm not giving up anytime soon.
And I'm going to speak, Will, because our Facebook social media has been a big center of a lot of the communication about this. You're not alone. Will, I'm assuming you're also, you said you were charged up after watching the second video. I'm sure there's more fight you've got left in you.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna follow in your footsteps. I'm gonna create myself a long form podcast where I'm gonna expose the school board on every term as much as I can in any way I can, and And I'm thinking about even the first 6,000 page document. I'm gonna pare that down a bit, but I'm gonna make a video about it, and I'm gonna post it.
Oh, watch it and share it.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get on social media. You got to get on Facebook because that's the only way people actually see that kind of stuff. And if you want to communicate, absolutely, we're here. To listen. So, anything you want to add, Angelina, as we kind of wrap this up?
I don't know.
No, that's again. You've done a lot so far. You've done more than a lot of folks, and you're very brave. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of motivation to do what you've done, and to be present and to be involved as much as you have. That takes some certain personal characteristics. So congratulations, good luck, keep going with what you are. And Will, again, anything else you want to add before we?
Yeah, just one thing. I wanted to say one thing at the start. I didn't get out, but I want to thank you guys. I watched your interview with the students, and I thought it was masterful. I thought that the insight, the kind of leadership, the role model approach that you guys had about bringing these students back in after such a terrible experience, and really lifted them up, gave them a platform for them to air their experience, and then actually encourage them to continue on with leadership and participation. I thought that your guys' video of that, and moreover this one as well with Angelina, I really think that you guys are doing a great job with this stuff and really trying to bring about healthy dialogue and really good just leadership and concern for the community. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you guys.
Thank you.
We have a great community here in Kingsville.
Exactly.
One to be proud of.
And in transparency, Gary Glass, our producer, he's the reason why we do this. He's the one that reached out to Kevin and myself to do this because he felt that there was a deficit after losing the newspaper and the ability for local media to report and tell the stories and have the conversation and be transparent. So, Will, thank you. But
it's not the same Gary Glass I went to school with in Kingsville Public School.
Gary, did you go to school with Will? It is.
You must have had a dad or an uncle or something with the same name.
Did you have different class? Anyway,
no. Gary says no. It's Gary.
Yeah, just Gary.
Okay,
only one I know.
Yeah, he's the only Gary Glass. Well. Again, hey.
I can now go sip on one of my Czech-style lager beers from Kingsville Brewery.
Well, hey.
There we are.
Thanks for the plug. We do that too, and they're open again. So, go have a beer. Go have a pint. Celebrate.
My favorite beer in town, Czech-style lager.
Wow.
There it is.
Making the plugs easy for us. Well,
Slip
Angelina, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day. Again,
thank you.
We'll see where this goes because as you've described and as, again, the feedback from the community, this is definitely...
Will you let us know when it gets posted?
Not over. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. It'll be out Saturday. So
beautiful.
Okay, good.
There you go. All right. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, nice meeting everybody. Good luck to you, Angelina. Stay in touch.
Right.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
So yeah, wow, having Will and Angelina on the show, very very insightful.
It's very interesting to hear the emotional side at the same time as hearing the analytical side, because Angelina, you can see the emotion in the way that she presents herself, and then listening to Will just kind of pick apart different things. Yeah, like that's it. I don't know. It's wild to hear how insane this situation really all is.
Like your point earlier about, you made the comment, the school board's going to decide what to do, knowing that full on, you didn't expect it to be this circus of arrogance and disregard and ignorance.
No, but I knew that if the wishes of the committee and the community weren't at least presented, that the outcome would be something like this. It was discussed how, Amherstburg really fought for stuff. Somebody suggested there was a name change at a Windsor school, and the community got very vocal, and the board did sort of sway a little bit. But with no disrespect to other communities, I knew that they hadn't seen anything until this. Like, this is, you say this sort of however you just describe it. Sorry, because
no, you're fine.
The passion, like, I don't understand how 6 people can be right and 20,000 wrong, if you will.
You're not. That number is, it's exaggerated, but we're talking in the thousands of people that are being vocal and that are having, an opposition to this process, the conduct, and the way that the decision was made, and the name itself.
And the crazy part is, the school's not even open, and people don't realize. Like, I don't think the community understands what is going to be missing from this school, and the name is probably the only victory you're going to get, because once that school opens and kids start coming home and explaining all the things that are missing from what they used to have,
right? Like
the excitement for students is going to be air conditioning. It's a $60 million building,
right? So there's so many layers, and I mean, this discussion could go on for hours. It won't, obviously, but it could. But some of the things that I've heard. So there's the next step is the branding and the nickname, and apparently they've received 2 from high school students, one of which was inappropriate.
Well, I was going to say, given the name, who's going to be motivated to
Okay, it's not just the name; it's the whole process. They don't trust. Correct. The trust is gone. So why bother? That's how everyone.
Yeah, they're just the school board is just going to decide.
Why
anyway.
bother, right? So that there's that element. And again, it's we keep talking about the students, but there are staff who, in different ways, show their pride in their job. Yes, by showing up every day and teaching, but they coach, they run after school activities, prior to school activities, lunch activities. They cover for other teachers, and they do it out of the goodness of their heart, but they do it because they have pride in the school and pride in the job. It's not just the students who are going to have pride in going into this building, it's staff members too, right? And yes, my wife is a teacher there, but I it's not like I just talk to my wife about stuff going on. No, I have a lot of friends who are I don't have a lot of friends. I know a lot of teachers.
Come on, Steve.
No. Okay, but seriously, and a lot of the information, I very rarely relay any information I get directly from my wife. A lot of the information I give out is from other sources. I had one person say to me the other day, because there's 3 school closings coming up, and there's graduations, and who generally attends these events?
Trustee.
Board representatives. It was suggested by one person that if certain people attend and they speak, simply stand up, leave the room until they're done, or simply stand up and turn your back. Like, I've never, in the 20 years I was a reporter, like, there's been frustrations with council decisions and school boards, sure, but I've never heard anything to this level. And I will say, there's been talk of like threats and stuff like that. I will condemn that. That is not the way you don't name call, you don't threaten or anything like that. You can be as angry as you want, but do it in the right way. Like, at the end of the day,
we're human.
She does not deserve to be threatened in any way.
Now, the one part of it that I haven't seen discussed yet is that there's, and we know through independent sources that there's active discussions with companies in the area to donate significant dollars to build a track, to build school, to build a soccer pitch,
to fill those voids of what's not
right
there.
Because there's no track planned, there's no soccer pitch planned, there's no play equipment planned.
Right, because the provincial funding doesn't cover any of that.
So that has to be community raised.
Right. Yes.
And so, like happened with the Nature Fresh field at LDSS, there's been discussions with companies in the area. And I bet those companies that were considering donating are probably happy that they aren't going to have their name tied to eating ass. Right? Like, if you're a company and you're putting your brand on something, do you want to put your brand on a place that's going to be referred to as Eat My Ass Field?
Right. And so so here's a decision that's going to negatively impact students
and the community.
Yeah. So I actually today emailed, I haven't had a chance to tell you guys this yet, the marketing department of Pfizer. And you're thinking, why Pfizer? Well, they are the parent company for Preparation H. And I figure that if... Guys, marketing 101, you got to use the cards you're dealt. And if it's a bad hand, you got to work with it. So
play that hand.
Maybe that works. Maybe there's another company that you could come up with that
depends.
Right.
Oh no, I mean, it depends.
If the board and I know we talked about this earlier, and I'm joking sort of now, but the board has decided that they're fine with knowing that this school will likely be referred to as Eat My Ass or Eat My Ass Academy. Like, I just knowing that is so mind blowing to me.
It hurts. It's upsetting.
I'm so frustrated because it's not one point. Like, it's not like, we just don't like the name Erie Migration Academy. No. There's a big portion of that, and I agree with that. But then there's 10 other things.
Yes.
There's 10 other things.
It's all of that.
Right.
You're so right.
It's been suggested that, there's people who aren't going to refer to it by the name. If the name sticks, it's just going to be the Academy. I prefer the Academy. And I'll tell you right now, like, I coached at Kingsville District High School for 18, 19 years. I'm going to call it Kingsville. My kids are going to go to Kingsville.
But here's the problem. Kingsville. I agree with that, but the problem is their diploma will say Erie Migration Academy. Every school jersey, every reference in any kind of media.
No, I get that.
Anything, anywhere outside of what we talk about in the community will say that.
And that's yes.
And where that misconception is and where that firepower behind the acronym and the Eat My Ass intimidation on sports fields and whatever, that's where it is, because other people don't give a I almost said it. Stuff about us.
Oh, wait, what comes from that word?
Well,
ass. Derivatory.
No, but so like everyone, all the local schools, I mean, this has got so much media attention that even if there were some students that weren't aware of the acronym, right?
Oh, they sure are now.
Right. So that's one thing. But the first team to go to SWASA or OFSA and shows up with EMA on their shirt,
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Or, like most of the team merch, they've got the jogging pants with it across their butt.
Right.
With the name across their butt. And that's across schools. That's not just a thing like, oh, we're going to do it because it's a joke.
Well, does it say Kingsville District High School across their butt?
Yes.
They use the acronym on the butt.
Oh, correct. Yes. The acronym is usually how schools are referred to in a community, by the way. Oh, and a community has a name, and the name of the community is usually where the school is physically.
And I think this is the hardest part to swallow too, no, there's so many difficult things to it. But again, like Leamington, Tecumseh, Essex, Bell River.
But we have schools in Windsor that are called Beacon Hill and all of this.
You have multiple schools. We are, I can't say publicly funded because they're all publicly funded.
Which board?
Publicboard.ca, high school.
Oh my God.
Did that on purpose. Steve, it's like, okay. We're running long, and I appreciate anybody who's still listening. And I ask, please subscribe and share if you find that this is of value to you. The word, we're just a podcast. We're just three people that are trying to tell stories and have people talk about information that, because we've lost forms of media, this is one of the only ways that things can get out. So we greatly appreciate that support for us. So thank you. To summarize this between the three of us, we all have children that potentially or will be attending that school.
Yeah.
I have some that are in current school, in the public. You have it in Catholic. You have it in the public school, both high school and elementary school. That's just the three of us. We're a small part of this community. It's a far greater reaching area. There's way more than just us. There's way more implications. There's way more challenges that we're all going to have to face as a community because of what this decision and what this name is now forcing us to have to address. We never thought at the beginning of this whole process. Again, you made the point. We started talking about the new school in episode 4 of our podcast a couple of years ago.
And in case anyone's wondering, in 2022, we actually sat Nelson down there and we're asking him about the electrical at the high school, because we then knew there was going to be portables.
Correct. Like, and it wasn't that we're not clairvoyant. We don't have, the ability to predict the future. We just we're observant.
Yeah.
We looked into a little bit, read some stuff. So my frustration is that it's having such a greater effect on the entire community. Regardless of what some individuals are saying, and there's going to be naysayers, and it's going to cause a lot of problems, and I know that there's going to be an issue, but I'm going to drive it down your throat in perpetuity and not be a human being and an adult in a leadership role that was elected by your peers to say, you know what, maybe I misread the room, maybe I made a mistake, maybe I should listen to what everyone is saying. And maybe we should reconsider, but that's not happening. So now we are suffering, or we will be suffering, from this decision for years.
No decision yet.
Correct.
We're still waiting for what Chair Hatfield decides if whether or not that notice to rescind is able to go forward. I guess I've never heard of that before, but
as an adult. As someone who is preaching that they care about a community that is engulfed in this community and entrenched in it. And we heard at length about how much there's history there and holy cow, I care about this place. You're not listening. And it frustrates me to no end. I will admit fault. We have made mistakes. We are human beings. It's okay to say, you know what? My ego or whatever it was got in the way. And maybe I was a little short-sighted on this, and maybe I should just relent and admit that this was not the right decision and that we just change course, and that's okay. And this gets solved, and then trust can be built again. Because as I mentioned off camera during, after an episode before, the association between the name of a school was heavily inferred that it was due to sports teams, and that is not the case. It's a pinnacle in a community. Students learn there, and that's where their lives start into adulthood. And you receive so much different information from all different things. But you know what? One thing we all have in common is we went there to do this. We all learn from there. And if we can't build pride around that, we have, what do we have?
Bricks and mortar.
Bricks and mortar. And air conditioning. Yeah.
Go home.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Woohoo.
So, again, thanks everyone for listening. It's a long episode, but a lot of information. So as Kevin said, the decision's not final, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
Who knows? They make their own rules, apparently. We'll see. But again, thank you for everyone listening, watching. Please, again, if you find value in this conversation, or if you want to continue to spread the word, please subscribe, like, share videos, talk about it. Talk about it to people. Start asking questions. Like, people have filed complaints with the Ontario Ombudsman, right? Because they feel that there's issue and reason to do so. Stand up, speak up, because if you rely on someone else to do it, that's not a guarantee. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.